On Global TV News Prime, Senate approves electronic and manual transmission of election results, rejects mandatory electronic transmission. In business, Central Bank of Nigeria moves to digital auction with stripless securities settlement system. On the foreign scene, United Nations calls for calm as tensions continue to rise in northern region of Ethiopia. And in sports, President Tinubu hails Nigerian players after struck Super Bowl win. Hello and welcome to all of you in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Ubong Usoro. A quick reminder, Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. The Nigerian Senate has rejected provisions that would make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory following a tense and rowdy emergency sitting in Abuja. The decision comes amid public outrage and protests over the controversial amendments of the Electoral Act. National Assembly correspondent Anita Patrick reports.
The Senate convened an emergency plenary on Tuesday to address growing reactions from Nigerians over its passage of the Electoral Act Amendments Bill. At the heart of the controversy was the Senate's decision to remove provisions mandating the real-time electronic transmission of election results. During the sitting, Senate President Godswill Akpabio began proceedings with the consideration and adoption of the votes and proceedings of the last plenary session. Trouble, however, emerged when the Senate arrived at the section of the bill dealing with electronic transmission of results.
Those in support of the motion as enunciated by Senator Monguno and seconded by Senator Pamoro say aye. And those again say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate Chief Whip, Senator Mohammed Monguno, raised a point of order citing relevant sections of the Senate standing rules to enable the chamber rescind its earlier use of the word transfer, replacing it with electronic transmission. The motion was subjected to a voice vote and approved.
Electronically transmit the results from each polling unit to IREP portal, and such transmission shall be done after the prescribed Form EC8A has been signed and stamped by the presiding officer and or countersigned by the candidates or polling agents where available at the polling unit.
But moments later, the chamber descended into a rowdy session when Senator Einaya Abaribe challenged the outcome, insisting that there was a clear division among lawmakers and calling for a more definite voting process. Despite the protest, Senator Abaribe later withdrew his motion, paving the way for the Senate President to rule on the matter.
Mr. President, I claim a division. In respect of, we need to vote individually now.
From the outcome of the emergency sitting, the Senate effectively upheld its earlier decision, declining to include the words mandatory and real-time in the provisions for electronic transmission of election results. This means that while electronic transmission remains an option under the amended bill, it will not be compulsory. From the National Assembly, Anita Patrick reporting for Global TV News.
The federal government has confirmed that the Joint Health Sector Unions has suspended its 84-day nationwide industrial actions following a successful conciliation meeting. In a statement signed by Ado Bako, Assistant Director of Press and Public Relations, the Minister of State for Health, Dr. Isaac Adekunle Salako, said the resolution reflects the federal government's commitment to dialogue, fairness, and protection of Nigeria's health workers. The government said all members have been directed to return to work immediately in the interest of patients, health system stability, and national public security. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waidi Shaibu, has approved the immediate deployment of the Chief of Army Staff Intervention Battalion of Special Forces to Plateau State. A press briefing signed by the Media Information Officer of the Joint Task Force Operation Enduring Peace, Captain Chinonso Ote, and cited on the Nigerian Army X handle, described the move as a potential game changer in tackling insecurity in the states. The troops already in the states are tasked to aggressively and decisively address the recent resurgence of terrorist attacks. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, says the federal government must deliberately build the capacity of men and officers of the Nigeria Police Force and the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps in the ongoing war against insurgency. General Oluyede stated this during the 2025 budget appraisal and defense of the 2026 budget proposal, which was held at the National Assembly Complex in Abuja. Accompanied by top military officers, the CDS was received by members of the House of Representatives Committee on Defense, chaired by Lagos lawmaker Babajimi Benson. The Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sunday Aneke, says Nigeria's security environment remains fluid, directing the Nigerian Air Force Air Component commanders to intensify intelligence-led operations across all theaters. Aneke gave the directive during a high-level strategic meeting with Air Component commanders, describing the engagement as a critical forum to review ongoing operations and adapt strategies to emerging threats. He also said the evolving nature of the security landscape demands speed, precision, and continuous operational adjustments, stressing that intelligence must remain central to air operations. In a statement by the Air Force spokesperson Enyime Ejodame, noted that the meeting provided an opportunity to access current missions, close identified gaps, and align operational plans for real-time threat dynamics. The Benue State Command of the Nigeria Police Force has confirmed the abduction of 9 worshippers as Ojiji in Otonko district of Ado local government area, Benue State. The State Police Public Relations Officer DSP Agent Udeme confirmed the incident to Global Television News via telephone. DSP Udeme disclosed that armed bandits stormed St. John's Catholic Church Ojiji around 2 a.m. on Sunday and abducted 9 members of the congregation. The police command spokesperson added that security personnel have since been deployed to the area, while efforts are ongoing to rescue the abducted worshippers and apprehend the perpetrators. The chairman of Ado local government area, Sunday Oche, also confirmed the incident, said the church was observing a 30-day vigil and expressed regret that the organizers failed to heed advice and involve security operative during night activities. Barely a week after the new commissioner of police assumed duty in Imo State, the command says it has recorded major breakthroughs in crime-fighting operations across the state, with several suspects arrested and victims rescued. A correspondent in Owerri, Amarachi Ibe, reports.
Addressing journalists at the command headquarters in Owerri, the Commissioner of Police, Audu Garuba Bose, said the success followed coordinated operations involving police tactical units, sister security agencies, and community stakeholders. Within the period under review, police arrested 15 suspects for offenses including kidnapping, armed robbery, cultism, terrorism, child trafficking, murder, and stealing. The operations also led to the rescue of a kidnapped victim and a stolen child, both of whom have since been reunited with their families.
Within this period, the command arrested 15 criminal suspects for offenses such as kidnapping, armed robbery, cultism, terrorism linked to IPOB, ESN, child trafficking, murder, and stealing. Through coordinated operations, 1 kidnapped victim and 1 stolen child were rescued and reunited with their families.
Police operatives also recovered several firearms, ammunition, explosives, stolen motorcycles, communication gadgets, and other items linked to criminal activities across the state. In what the command described as a major breakthrough, 5 suspected members of a kidnapping and terror network operating in Uguta local government area were arrested with firearms and explosives recovered during the operations. Police further disclosed that information provided by one of the suspects led investigators to shallow graves in a forest area where bodies of alleged victims were exhumed.
During interrogation, Chinonso Ugochukwu, a.k.a. Bob Adam, an IPOB ESN sub-commander aged at 1 year old, confessed to the group's involvement in a series of kidnappings or murder and provided information which led to the recovery and exhumation of several corpses buried in shallow graves in the forest, among which is an alleged corpse of Pastor Chima, one Jeremiah, and one Ugochukwu Obaoze, all of Osuobodu in Oguta local government.
The police commissioner commended officers involved in the operations and assured residents that efforts to dismantle criminal networks across the state will continue. From Owerri, Amarachi Ibe, reporting for Global TV News.
Corporate Affairs Commission says it has handed over 263 illegally registered companies to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for investigation and possible prosecution. The Registrar General and Chief Executive Officer of CSC, Usiani Ishak Magaji, made the call in Abuja at the Anti-Corruption Forum marking the Commission's 35th anniversary. Kikelomo Okere reports.
The Registrar General Corporate Affairs Commission, Hussein Magaji, explained that the CAC is legally positioned to serve as the central repository for beneficial ownership information across the country. The Registrar General also warns that companies that fail to disclose their persons with significant control are classified as inactive. Yet, some financial institutions still allow some entities to operate accounts and transfer funds. Magaji disclosed that the Commission has submitted 248 fake companies registration along with 15 additional entities to the Economic and Financial Crime Commission for investigation and possible prosecution over illegal transactions.
Therefore, an urgent need for a single harmonized national register for beneficial ownership in Nigeria. CAC is positioned by law and structured to serve as the central repository for beneficial ownership information.
Chairman, Independent Corrupt Practice and Other Related Offences Commission, Musa Aliu, stressed that transparency is best achieved when anti-corruption institutions operate in a coordinated and unified system.
Transparency is a choice, a deliberate decision to govern, regulate, and do business in the open.
With the push for a unified beneficial ownership register, the Corporate Affairs Commission says stronger collaboration and compliance will tighten Nigeria's anti-corruption framework and deny criminals safe space within the corporate system. Kikelomo Okere, Global Television News.
You're watching the live broadcast of News Prime. News Prime continues after this weather forecast. We'll bring business, foreign, and sports stories on the side of this break. Please do stay with us.
You're welcome. Parts of the north central and the southern region of the country have been experiencing isolated thunderstorms popping up here and there. Now, even with these rainfall activities, we're still seeing daytime temperatures rise across some cities, with values climbing around 41 degrees Celsius. So yes, it may feel quite uncomfortable out there. So what should we expect going into Wednesday? A fairly quiet morning across most parts of the country, but as we move into the afternoon, conditions become more favorable for laundry activities over parts of Taraba, Kaduna, and Kebbi State. There are also slim chances of thunderstorms across Plateau, the Federal Capital Territory, Niger, Kwara, Kogi, and Benue State. And keep an eye out, these rainfall activities could also spread to some inland cities and also the coastal parts of the country. And that's the weather update. I am Akemi Samarda. Do join us again.
In business, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has confirmed the full operational deployment of its scriptless security settlement system, S4, as exclusive gateway for primary market auctions of government securities. The confirmation was made in response to an inquiry by the bank. Cements S4 as the sole infrastructure for bid submission, price discovery, and allocation in Nigeria's sovereign debt market. The clarification follows February 2026 Treasury bills auction, where the federal government offered 150 billion naira in 91-day bills, 200 billion naira in 182-day bills, and 800 billion naira in 364-day bills under the fully centralized electronic process. The federal government has set an ambitious economic target of 4.49% growth as the 2026 budget focuses on deepening reforms, expanding revenue, and enforcing fiscal discipline. The Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Doris Nzoka Anite, disclosed this at the public hearing on the 2026 Appropriation Bill organized by the Senate Committee on Appropriations at the National Assembly. National Assembly correspondent Aniete Patrick again reports.
Uzoka Anite said the administration is moving beyond budget formulation to measurable outcomes, ensuring that limited national resources are deployed with maximum efficiency and impact. Looking ahead, she described 2026 as a year of consolidation with projections by the Ministry of Finance and the Central Bank of Nigeria anchored on improved revenue performance and stronger coordination between monetary and fiscal authorities. She also revealed that Nigeria's external reserves have risen above $40 billion, while enhanced revenue generation has boosted monthly FAC distributions to states, creating more fiscal space at the sub-national level.
The growth rate required to achieve a 1 trillion economy is at its minimum 10% in 10 years. And this is different from what I said earlier of 6 to 7%, which is only necessary to reduce the level of poverty in the country. And this brings me to the medium-term fiscal priorities.
On the legislative side, Deputy Senate President Senator Jibril Barrow, representing Senate President Godswill Akpabio, said the 2026 budget is not about spending more, but spending better, stressing that appropriations must translate into real impact for Nigerians.
Keynes once observed, the difficulty lies not so much in developing new ideas as in escaping from old ones. Our task, therefore, is not simply to spend more, but to spend better.
Earlier, Chairman of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, Senator Solomon Adiola, outlined key budget assumptions, including an inflation target of 16.5%, an exchange rate of 1,400 naira to the dollar, oil production of 1.84 million barrels per day, and a benchmark oil price of $64.85 per barrel.
Inflation has eased to about 15%. Foreign reserve exceed $42 billion. The exchange rate has stabilized, and the downstream sector, petroleum sector, is fully market-driven.
The federal government says the 2026 budget will remain results-driven with accountability, stability, and economic recovery at its core. From the National Assembly, Aniete Patrick reporting for Global TV News.
On the foreign scene, United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer insisted he would not resign after a prominent ally demanded the Prime Minister quit for embroiling the British government in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Senior ministers rallied around him over the most serious crisis yet of his 19-month premiership, as the rising far-right challenges him in the polls. Zara Nasir reports.
Earlier on Monday, Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwal called on Starmer to resign for appointing Peter Mandelson as United States ambassador, despite knowing he had maintained links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. London has reacted to calls for embattled Premier Keir Starmer to resign for embroiling the British government in the Epstein scandal, as the leader faces the most serious crisis of his 19-month premiership.
I think it's an embarrassment for Great Britain to have this constant rotation of prime ministers on the world stage, especially when there's so much global uncertainty. You'd hope that our own country would be able to provide some stability and all that.
I don't think he should resign, just because there's quite a lot of turmoil in the country and also worldwide, and adding more to the political turmoil in the UK by the Prime Minister resigning would just be a bit counterproductive, in my opinion. Mistakes happen. I think he acknowledged his mistake. We should just move on.
I don't think he should, because he should hold his ground, because he hasn't done anything wrong. What has he done wrong? I mean, he supported somebody on good faith, and that person let him down. Mendelsohn, right? You're talking about. If he's let him down, what is his fault? So I think it's a bit unfair to push him to the edge for that reason.
Several cabinet ministers came out in support of the Prime Minister following several days of ominous silence, including his deputy, David Lammy, Foreign Minister Vet Kufa, and Finance Minister Rachel Reeves. Zahra Unasr, reporting for Global TV.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has called on all parties in the conflict in Ethiopia to take urgent steps towards de-escalation in the Tigray region. The UN chief insisted that political dialogue and confidence-building measures are urgently needed, not renewed resorts to armed violence. Again, Zahra Nasir reports.
Renewed tensions in the country risk a return to war between Ethiopian forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, with at least 600,000 people killed during their previous conflict, according to the African Union. Speaking in Geneva, Rabina Shamdazani, a spokesperson for the office of Volker Turk, says recent clashes have highlighted the risks of a deepening human rights crisis in northern Ethiopia.
The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, calls on all parties to take urgent steps towards de-escalation amid the precarious situation in the Tigray region. Recent fighting between the Ethiopian army and regional forces has highlighted the risk of a deepening human rights crisis in the north of the country. The situation remains highly volatile, and we fear that it will deteriorate, worsening the region's already precarious human rights and humanitarian situation.
The Rights Office highlighted that drones, artillery, and other powerful weapons were used by both sides, while they also engaged in arrests and detentions. Zahra Unasr, reporting for Global TV.
Let's go to sports now. President Bola Tinubu has extended congratulations to player of Nigeria Descent after Seattle Seahawks' 29-13 victory over New England Patriots in the Super Bowl 30 at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. In a statement issued by his Special Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, the president hailed the players for what he described as the pride and honor they've brought to their country of descent. According to the statement, the president said the players' achievements were a source of national pride, particularly commending Emma Wuri, Nwosu, and Maya for raising Nigeria's flag after the Super Bowl's victory. And that's it on News Prime. Here's a recap of our top stories. On Global TV News Prime, the Nigerian Senate has rejected provisions that will make the electronic transmission of election results mandatory following a tense and rowdy emergency sitting in Abuja. And in business, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has confirmed the full operational deployment of its scriptless security settlement system, S4, as exclusive gateway for primary market auctions of government securities. On the foreign scene, the United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk has called on all parties in the conflict in Ethiopia to take urgent steps towards de-escalation in the Tigray region. And in sports, President Bola Tinubu has extended congratulations to players of Nigerian descent after the Seattle Seahawks' 29-13 victory over New England Patriots in the Super Bowl 30 at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California. A quick reminder, Global Television is on DSTV channel 365. and also Star Times channel 276. Kindly do follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TVNG. My name is Ubong Osoro. Bye for now.